So please help me welcome to the platform again, Reverend Angelo.
Thank you so much, Reverend Donna. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. First of all, I would like, as usual, to say thank you to the Temple of Love and Healing, Reverend Sarah, Judy, Frank and David, Donna. Thank you for hosting me and giving me a chance to talk to you. And thank you all for being here. And a special thank you to my dear friend, Dinah Davis. I love you. Thank you for being here. The title of the speech tonight hopefully will not only be useful to you, but maybe to some of your friends or relatives which might be struggling with what I'm going to share with you. Really, in my mind, the title was like the two things which can prevent you from going to heaven. Firstly, I would like to say that if the word heaven sounds too religious for you, you can replace it by anything you want. Also, I will use the word spirit to describe the energy which comes out of the body when we transition. If you want to use soul, do it as well. And thirdly, for this talk, I will use some of my recent experience to back up everything I'm going to share with you. So what are the two things which can prevent us from going to heaven? Because among some spiritual circles and people, there is this idea that when we do transition, we immediately go to heaven. Unfortunately, this statement is not accurate. There are a couple of things which can prevent a spirit from going back home. And this is how you end up with your typical ghost in houses or wandering souls in roads or forests. And the block can last quite a while. And when I say quite a while, I'm not speaking in terms of days, months, or even years, or even decades. I can speak in terms of centuries. So it's quite a big thing. So what are the two elements which could prevent you from going back to heaven when your time comes? The very first one is hate. Hate is like a dark coat surrounding you, which prevents you from even imagining, thinking about the light. And hate starts with anger. And this is where I will share a bit of my own personal recent story. A month ago, I was going through some really trials and tribulations. I was getting bad news from everywhere, challenges and bad news from friends, where I have my 96 years old grandmother and my uncle, who is 78, and being far away made things even bigger and more stressful. Then in the US as well, things were challenging, and really one thing after the other were collapsing to the point that I really wondered if I was not experiencing what some people do call the dark night of the soul, where everything is falling apart. And where eventually the very last thing I was relying on fell apart. I lost it. I lost my cool, whereas I'm really a chill guy, very easygoing. But that particular night, I was very, very, very angry, which again is not my style, but this is what happened. Then the situation developed and found a very dramatic and shocking conclusion, which could have led many people to be hateful. But let's put that aside for a minute. We will get back to it. 2026 is around the corner. In 2026, it's going to be 10 years I've been conducting consultations with people, males and females coming from various continents, various races, ethnicities, spiritual backgrounds, religious belief. And regardless of those differences, there is one common point. Many of them came to me filled with hate, being hateful. They hated life. Life was not good. Nothing was good in life. They hated people. They reached that point where they had these negative emotions in them. And why so? Because they got hurt. And they got hurt sometimes at a very early age, when they were children, a child, maybe because of an unloving parent, or an abusive relative, or sibling, or maybe because of another kid at school, or because of a teacher. And growing up, maybe because of some co-workers, or some employers, and therefore, and after that, some partners. They accumulated pain from so many different sources. And because they didn't do anything about it, it built, it spiraled up to the point that now they became hateful. And when I have some of those people in consultation, I already can tell the ones who will get to heaven and the other ones. I just need to look at their energies and I know. So the thing is, everything starts with a wound. You've been hurt. And the pain generates anger. If you do not do anything about this anger, here is what's going to happen, most likely. Anger is going to transform into resentment. If the person doesn't do anything about resentment, it's going to transform into bile, spitefulness. If the person doesn't do anything about bile and spitefulness, it can morph into rage, then hate, to the point that the person wants to be even revengeful. That's how things are if you do not do anything. So everything I'm going to share with you tonight has one goal: to help you get rid of any seed of anger that you could already have or might encounter in the future in your life. So what do we do? Well, first off, we need to cut the head of the anger. And if you are finding yourself in a situation where somebody hurt you, either in words or in actions, and you reacted to that, maybe also crossing some lines yourself and being angry, as I was a month ago, you need to do one thing, which might shock you. You need to apologize, regardless of what the person did or said to you. Obviously, I'm not thinking about the example where you get out of the store, you go back to your car, you see somebody slashing your tire, and you get angry. Nobody's going to ask you to apologize for that. I'm talking about a situation where you are in a heated argument or in a conflict or in a very sensitive situation with somebody who really is doing wrong things to you, but maybe you are blowing up. You are saying things or doing things which are not your usual, and it's not good. In this case, regardless of what the person did or said to you, you apologize. Because when you do apologize, what happens is that, number one, you are cutting the head of the anger. Number two, you are showing God that you are mature enough to step back and make a difference between what's right, what's wrong, what's fair, what's unfair, what's good, what's bad. You are also showing yourself, your soul, your higher self, God, you name it, your ability to turn your back off negative energies and walk again towards the light. So this is why you need to apologize. I hear you. I hear you. Some of you might think, well, Angelo, I'm not too sure about the apology thing, because if the person wronged me and I do apologize, then the person is going to think I'm weak, and then the person will feel even more entitled to what he or she did because I'm the only one apologizing, and it's going to give power to the person. You might be right. As a matter of fact, you might be very well right, and most likely, this is exactly how the person in front of you might think or is going to react. And who cares? This is an ego thing. We are talking about what's right to do for you to cut the head of anger and show God how your heart is. We don't care about what the other people think. They think you weak, they're weak. They don't know that our apologies is the weapon of the strong, not of the weak. It takes a lot of heart, bravery, yet humility to apologize to somebody. So we don't care about what they think. And I bet that most of the people who hurt you in your life never apologize to you, right? Because they don't have this kind of heart. But you can. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. Because there is still, we cut the head of the anger. What about the tail, the seeds, the root? Because everything started with a wound, with someone hurting you, right? So there is still this inside of you that you need to annihilate, dissolve. So what do we do to get rid of the tails, the roots of the anger, which to avoid it to spiral up and become anger? Well, my friends, here comes the bad news. There is one thing to do, the infamous word. The word which, if I pronounce it in some of my consultations with clients, they immediately want a refund. This word is forgiveness. You need to forgive. I'm sorry, friends, you cannot skip that one. This is what Jesus Christ asked us to do. This is what you just said reciting the Lord's Prayer. You need to forgive all the people who hurt you, whatever they did to you. And I know how people can be nasty. Believe me, I know it. They can betray you, hurt you physically, emotionally, mentally. They can put you under the bus, betray you, slander you, use you, lie to you. They can do so many bad things. Yet, we need to forgive. When you forgive, you cut the tail of the darkness, of the negative energy, of the anger. And let me tell you this, I'm speaking about true forgiveness. Because some people say, well, I forgive, I don't forget. Well, I'm sorry, buddy, if you forgive but don't forget, then you don't forgive. And it doesn't matter if you tell me that you pray the rosary 3 times a day. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you tell me that you are going to church every Sunday. I don't care if you are telling me that you are praying to God and Jesus Christ 10 times a day. If you can't forgive, my gardener in France is more spiritual than you. So think about it. When it comes to me, I told you that the situation I was involved in found a very dramatic and shocking conclusion, which could have led many people to be hateful and resentful. Yet what I did is that I forgave immediately. I'm very quick to forgive people. If you want to find a non-spiritual explanation, you can tell that I took that from my father, very good-hearted man. People could hurt him, he could be angry, but then he would tap on your back and buy you a drink. So for me, it has always been very easy to forgive people. If we want to try to find a more spiritual reason, maybe it's the result of all my past lifetimes, which now led me to be so easy to forgive. Maybe 50 lifetimes ago, things would have been different for me. Maybe I would have slit the throats of my offenders and drink their blood. But now, forgiving is easy for me. So what I did is that I went to my spiritual place. I prayed to our Savior, Jesus Christ. I explained the situation and I shared my pain. But I said, officially, I forgive that person. And not only that, I asked Jesus Christ to bless that person and surround that person with his light. And now some of you might be like, again, oh, Angelo, don't push your luck. Okay, forgiving is already difficult, but blessing the person, absolutely. This is the only way you will make sure your forgiveness is genuine. If you really want good things to that person. And if you ask Christ to bless that person who has been so bad with you. And let me tell you exactly what's going to happen. This is why I'm sharing a bit of my personal experience, because I really want you to see how things develop coming from God, from a spiritual or godly standpoint. The second I forgave the person, that person disappeared from my energies. Like I'd become transparent. Like some cords, links, call it the way you want, vanished. This is why you want to forgive, because on the flip side, how many of my clients in consultations are still talking 10 years, 15 years, 20 years after being wounded by someone, still mentioning their name and the episode? They've been carrying on their shoulders all their life those people who hurt them. Why? So when you do forgive someone, you get released. Immediately released, if your forgiveness is genuine. Also, the second positive thing about forgiving people who hurt you is that you're going to attract God's blessings into your life. And again, let me share with you what did happen to me. I told you that everything was falling apart, including actually my business, my activity, my spiritual business. Things were on halt, completely. The day I forgave the person and asked Jesus Christ to bless that person, I got a new prayer case. Not a consultation, a prayer case, some work, some more work. And since then, I got 2 prayer cases, 3 prayer cases, 4 prayer cases, 5 prayer cases, 6 prayer cases, 7 prayer cases, 8 prayer cases. I'm overwhelmed, and I have still people coming to me because they want me to heal them. I don't have enough time. If this, ladies and gentlemen, is not what we call God's blessing, I don't know how to call it. It's like God telling me, Angelo, that was a rough one. You put a knee on the floor, but ultimately you passed the test. Good job, here's my blessing. If you do forgive people who hurt you, and you are genuinely doing so, God will bless you in return, tenfold. The little effort you're going to do blessing and forgiving the people will return to you in a way you have no idea. And the last thing, the last benefit in forgiving people is like, let's suppose you haven't developed this amount of hate which could prevent you from going to heaven when you transition, but still, you still have some sore points inside of you when it comes to some situation that you've experienced in your life in the past and in regard to some people. It's still not cool, you're still not at peace with some things. You're still hurt. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Yes, okay, you're going to still go back to heaven. That's fine. But because you haven't reached what I call the zero balance karmic line, you will have to come back. You will have to come back and experience again interacting with that person until you are clear. I don't want that. That lifetime was enough. I don't want to keep on coming here with all the people who hurt me. I mean, okay, it was nice meeting you. Thank you. You hurt me. I forgave you. Now, hasta la vista, baby. Bon voyage. I don't want to have to deal with those people anymore. And that's why you forgive, genuinely forgive, because then you don't care. And you are free. And you don't need to come back to deal with those people. That's the benefit from forgiving people. And if you do those two things, in the case you stepped outside of your normal norm, maybe you don't, but if one day you do, or if you did, then you present your apologies. And if people hurt you, you forgive. About the apology thing, let me tell you one thing. Maybe you still have access to the person if you realize that even yourself, you stepped a bit outside of the line, so you can present your apologies, but let's suppose you can't anymore. You don't have access to the person. You're not talking to each other anymore. You can still do it. Let me give you that little trick. You can either enter into a meditation and visualization where you imagine the person, and you can imagine yourself talking to the person and saying to the person that you are really sorry and you apologize. And you can envision you hugging the person and the person smiling at you and feeling better because of your apologies. You can do that. That's one way. There is another way you can do. You can pray to God. You can pray to Christ and explain the situation and tell them, look, Lord, I could have done better. Unfortunately, I cannot say now directly to that person, I do apologize. But I put those apologies into your hands. Please bring them to the proper destination. He will do that for you. There are a lot of things that you can do with meditation / visualization, and a lot of things energy-wise that you can do with Christ. I'm using those things every day. So that's for the anger, to avoid it from developing and getting up and up and up to the point that it's hate. Now, what's the second thing which can prevent a spirit from going back to heaven? And oh boy, this one is nasty as well, very bad. The second thing which can really represent a big block for a spirit to go back to heaven is guilt. Guilt is such a poison. Let me tell you what guilt is. Guilt is like you swimming on a lake and somebody suddenly is dragging you down at the very, very bottom to the point that you can't even see the light above the water. This is what guilt does to you. It surrounds you with such rotten, painful energies that the soul can't even consider going to the light, going back to heaven, because the spirit is eaten alive by his own guilt. So he's not giving him the right to go to the light. That's a bad one. That's the reason why you want to be at peace with yourself. And guilt involves usually regrets, remorse. So when it comes to me, how many people did I really hurt? I'm 52. I mean, I don't have guilt because I've done that work, and I'm going to share with you the tools I've used. I don't have guilt anymore, regrets or remorses. But how many people did I hurt? 3 people. Some people could say that's not a lot, 3 people in 52 years old. Well, to me, it's 3 people too many. Now, okay, maybe 4 if we count when I was 5 years old and I stole the ice cream to the other kid and he cried. Maybe 4. But what you want to do, and everything I'm talking to you about is, because I want you, is for one thing. I want you that by the time it's your time to transition, I want you to have no guilt and no negative feelings for anybody, so that you will have the smoothest ride to go to heaven. That's the scope of that speech. So guilt. How do we get rid of guilt? I have a good news and I have a bad news. The good news is that, the bad news is that there is no magical recipe, no magic button that you can press and boom, the guilt is gone. The good news is that you can still use tools to help yourself. The very first thing you need to do to get rid of guilt, and we go back to what we said in the first part, you need to apologize. If you know that you hurt some people, you need to apologize. If you don't have access to those people anymore, then you do the prayers or visualization thing I mentioned earlier. Number 2, since we all do believe in God, we ask forgiveness to God. He will give it to you. That's going to be a very simple procedure. That's the easy thing. He's going to forgive you immediately. But you do that. It's important, at least to my view, that we show God, that we repent, and we are smart enough to know when we could have done better, and so we ask him to forgive us. But does it resolve everything? Absolutely not, because there is the worst part, the most difficult part, which is that we need to forgive ourselves. And that's the tricky part. How can we do that? I'm going to give you what I use myself. Hopefully it will resonate with you or will help you. First of all, we have to not only understand, but accept that we are imperfect and that we came here on earth exactly because of that, because we are imperfect. We have also, it's important for us also to understand that God, the very first second we came to earth, already knew that at some point we would fall and fail, quote. He already knew it, yet he loves us, nonetheless. We have to understand that every opportunity that we do have in this life, even the worst of us parts, are always an opportunity for us to become better, to improve, to get more perfect, and to get closer to God. And I am the result of all my good and bad. I am the result of all my successes and failures. I am who I am today because of everything I went through, even the dark side of me. When I heard those 3 people, for instance, or when I got angry 1 month ago. This makes who I am now. Because just 1 month ago, when I was so lost and confused, I enhanced my spiritual practice with new tools, new prayers, and guess what? I have kept those things. So coming from something bad and dark and difficult for me now made me even feel closer to God than I was before. So there is always good in everything, as long as we are willing to do the job. Because when I say you have to accept that you are imperfect, I don't mean we have to give ourselves license to hurt everybody and do anything we want. That's not what I'm saying. We still need to have the goal to become a better person, closer to God and more perfect. But it means that when we do fall, we have to accept it. Look at it, understand what it reveals from what we can improve on, and do the job. This is how winning is done. This is how we are getting better. And if you do that, you won't have any guilt when it's time for you to cross over. Because you will have done so much more good than bad. Because you will have analyzed everything that you could have done better. You would have taken all those things into consideration and used them to your advantage to do even more good and not to replicate the mistakes that you've made. That's how we are getting more and more perfect, and this is how we polish our diamond. So to finish, last words, thank you for your patience if you are still with me, thank you for that, is again, I'm talking to you about that because maybe you are not concerned with the hate and guilt, but maybe you know people who are, and hopefully everything I talked about today, you might use it, maybe you can use it to help those people, because in my job, I see so many people suffering, so many people in pain, so many people being angry, so many people beating themselves up for what they did, what they didn't do, what they said, what they didn't say. And I can see this as a poison in them. And it's a shame because God loves us and we can become our worst enemies. So it's important to have those guidelines. Thanks again for your patience. Thank you, Reverend Donna. Thank you, Reverend Sarah. Thank you to the temple. Thank you, all of you who came here tonight. I'm very touched. I don't know all of you equally, but I love you all. And thanks again for being here, and God bless you.